Yes, Ravati, we can start.
Okay. All right, let's begin. Oh. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat, Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri, Gurave Namaha, Akhanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaste Sharada Devi, Kashmira Puravasini, Vidyadanam Karishyami, Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Om Shri Sadguru Devaya Namaha. Okay, so yesterday we covered arrays and objects. Do you have any questions with respect to that?
No, Ji.
Okay. We saw that why it is very important to create the right data structure and think about it properly even before we start coding a solution. Okay, we should, if we are facing a problem that we need to solve through code, usually the one thing we should typically do is, what is the data structure I will use to solve this problem? What is the shape of the data that will map to this kind of a problem? If I think about that properly, and what is the right shape, not just any shape, what is the right shape that should ideally fit this problem, then that is 60-70% of the work done. Okay, so thinking through the problem even before we start coding is the one of the most important aspects of coding. Okay, coding itself does not carry a lot of weight as much as we thinking that how will we solve this problem. Coding is just a result of that thinking effort. Does that make sense? Okay, we properly thinking through, okay, this is how I'm going to do things, this is how I'm going to structure things, this is the structure of the data, these are various functions that will be used to solve the problem. That will be more of the exercise. Me thinking about this structure is more important. Later on I can go and define what is the add function looking like, what is the square function looking like, what is the factorial function looking like, what is the is odd function, Fibonacci function, and Pascal's triangle. Clear? Me thinking about this structure is more important than actual implementation later. I might as well at the end of the day tell ChatGPT to come up with Fibonacci function, or Bolt to come up with this kind of a function, or GitHub Copilot, or whatever I'm using. But this process of, this is the flow of the program, these are various parts of the program, these are different functionalities that make sense to me when solving the problem. Okay, at the end of the day, see, writing the program is not the most important or the hardest part. I can do it, you can do it, Bolt can do it, ChatGPT can do it. every possible way is there. Okay. What is the harder part? Writing it in a way that other people can understand. Okay. All of the outputs will run, even, if I write the function in this way, or I write the function inline like this way. Okay. Both of them are working. But this is more understandable by other people. And this is not that much understandable by other people. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, Ji.
Okay, when something goes wrong, this is the one that is going to be easy to work with versus somebody going through these kind of details. Okay, we should always design our programs and optimize them for debugging and issues and maintenance. Creation is one part, okay? But ongoing issues, debugging, maintenance, refactor, extending the program, or adding more functionality. If we are thinking along these lines, then all these things are going to be easy to do in later. Okay. Debugging is a much harder task. Writing is the easiest part of the problem. Okay, when something is not working as expectations, this is going to be very hard to work with. So what I was at is debugging this is going to be much more easier compared, this is much more easier compared to this. Okay. Okay. And this, another thing that we do while we work with all these things in this way is build a proper mental model of the system when we create it. Okay. And that's a very important exercise when we think about the code, how we are going to structure it. When we think about the data structure, what is it, what shape it is going to be. We build a nice mental model of things prior to starting the work, as well as, as well as for later purposes as well. Okay. When we have a very clear mental model of how the things are, later you are able to reason about it very nicely. Okay. Sorry, Sakshi was cranky when she is back from the school. So what important exercise we do is build a nice mental model of the problem we are solving, as well as how everything is structured with respect to code. And that's very important because later down the line, when you are working with it, you can very nicely reason about it. Okay, so that is very important. It's very useful for, debugging issues when they come later, or if you have to perform some maintenance in the code, or you have to do refactoring, or even extend the functionality of the code. So let's say this one, tomorrow you want to decide that rather than squaring the result, you want to just double the result. Okay, so I can just say that this is double result. See how simple a change is this, and still how this is very readable. So did you see how easy it is to
Yes, sir.
reason about this and change anything here?
Yes, sir.
Just modifying the signatures here.
Yes, sir.
All right. So lastly, we will move on to the concept of map, filter, and reduce. Okay. In fact, let me not even go there first. Let me clear the concept of pure and impure functions here. But any questions so far with respect to what we discussed? Feel free to, raise doubts or speak out if any question is there or misunderstanding is there.
Think if we do some assignments as in HTML, we will
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the doubts.
We will have assignment here as well. I'll ask you to create some simple functions and compose them. That will be helpful. So I'll be having one assignment around functions, one assignment around data structures. And later on, when we do this map reduce, we'll have another assignment around that. So last concept I want to introduce here is that of pure and impure functions. Okay. So let us say this function, let's use this syntax rather than the function syntax, otherwise you'll get confused if you see this syntax later on. So sum is a function which takes in two numbers and returns the sum of it. Okay. Okay. So if I use sum, what will be there in C? What will I get in C?
5.
5, right? Now, will anything change this output? As long as I am passing value 2 and 3, what am I going to get? As long as I am passing the value 2 and 3, I'm always going to get back 5. Why is that?
Because it's always the sum, right?
It's a sum of the numbers that I'm passing to the function, right? So these two are called arguments of a function. Okay. I can also say that const total equal to A plus B and return total. So this is a variable within function. And this I am returning, right? Now, I'm always returning the total of what I receive. And as long as I pass the same arguments, I am going to get the same result. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
It's a very straightforward thing. I'm passing the same input, I'm getting the same output. Same input gives you the same output. Okay. This is something called pure functions. Pure functions means as long as you pass on the same input, you receive the same output. Okay. There will never be a time when I am passing 2 and 3 and I will receive something like 6. Or I'll be receiving something like 4. As long as I am passing 2 and 3, I am getting back 5. Pure functions are the one that always give me same output given the same input. Now, there is another concept called impure functions. And if functions feel bad due to that name, then we can say that it is functions with side effects. Okay. What are these? It is the exact opposite of this, which means even if you give same input, the function can give different output. Can any one of you think about such a function which will give a different output even though you give the same input?
Cube of a number.
No, that will give the same output if you give the same input.
Now here, if we give some if else and say if it is odd, you give a sum. If it is even, give something else. If that is the case, then it will be.
This one, mathematic function, are you saying?
Yes.
No, this is also a pure function. Okay, as long as the value of x and y are same, it will always return the same thing. Impure functions or functions with side effects are the one which, even if the input is exactly the same, can return a different output. What is some impure function you can think of? Anybody?
No idea, Dhavalji.
Okay.
So based,
Sorry?
like based on, let's say, on my current location, you have to give something. So the current location
Exactly.
each time.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, if I have to book a cab based on my current location, but the current location will be different each time.
Yeah. Yes. So something like booking a cab. Okay. Where even if your current location is same, the fare that you get may be different based on a variety of other parameters which are of the scope that is outside this function. Clear? Which are of the scope that is outside this function, or this function itself is reading something which is always changing. For example, okay, get current date. What will this function always return?
Today's date.
Current date. It will be always different. Okay, based on the time you are calling it, there you are calling it, it can return a different output. Get time. Okay, will it be always different?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Get a person's information. Okay. If this function is calling some server side and getting a person's information given a name, okay, is it possible that I get the different information for the same person different times?
No.
Yes, it can. If he has changed his details.
Yeah, that is possible.
Okay. So every time you give the same input, though, it can give you different output based on the state of the system. Let us say this person's information is supposed to give out age. Okay. Then if I have crossed my birthday recently, it will give a different age for my information. Okay. If my birthday is yet to come and I've called it, then it's going to give the same age. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Every time if I give the same input, it's giving me a different output. Or if I do this, const b equal to math function, which takes in a, or const math function equal to x and y, it returns me sum of x and y plus z, where z equal to math.random. Okay. Z is a random number. Okay. So this function is returning me x plus y, which is the input I am giving. But it is also adding a random number to the input. Will every time I call this function, I'll get a different output?
Yes. It's going to be different. Yes, Ravi.
Yes.
Different.
Every time I'm calling this function, I'm going to get a different output. Okay, let us say math function 1, 2. Okay, so x is 1, y is 2. X plus 1 is 3. X plus y is 3. Okay, but for the first time it calls, let's say random number is 5. So it will return 8. Second time I call, let's say random number is 10. It will return 13. Even though I am calling the same function with the same input, it produces a different output. Clear? Can anybody say now what is the concept of pure versus impure functions?
Pure function is when we give the same output at any time, it is going to give the same output. But the impure function is the one where even if we give the same input, the output is going to differ. Is differ.
Correct. It can differ in the output. Okay. Okay. And the last concept I want you to know is that of functions inside a function. Okay. Like I am able to use any variable within a function. Okay. I can also create functions within a function. What does this do? It returns the triple of a number, of a sum. Okay, let me remove z equal to 5. This does tripling of the sum. Okay, let me rename this to. Okay, x plus y it does here. So let me also do const sum equal to AB so it returns me triple of sum of X and Y. So it is the same concept of using functions, but the only difference is that here the functions I am creating are outside versus here the functions I am creating are inside. There is absolutely no other difference apart from the purpose. What is the purpose of creating the functions inside versus outside?
Is the function inside accessible outside, or it's only for that particular functions?
Very good. It's not accessible outside.
It's only for the functionality of that particular function.
Correct. So this is actually limiting the access of these functions within this. That means the usage of these functions is meant only for this function. They don't matter outside this function. Even if they were outside, they were of no use. Okay, to any other function. If I have a function called const double multiply, okay, double multiply, what this will do? Const double equal to n return n into 2, const multiply equal to AB return A into B. Okay, and here I am saying return double of multiply of X and Y. Okay, so if I'm passing here double multiply, two comma 3, what am I going to get back?
12.
12. First it multiplies that, so 2 into 3 is 6, and then it doubles that, which is 12. Okay, now if these functions are not generic enough to be used by other functions, it is a better choice to keep them inside here. It is called encapsulation. Okay, it is not needed anywhere else in the program. It is better to keep them here. Okay, if they are supposed to be reused in other places in the program, let us say double is a generic enough functionality, multiply is a generic enough functionality, and other functions are also going to use it. Okay, let us say I want the concept of double even in the other concept, other function. Then I would keep it as a function outside. Okay, let's say I want to do double. Does that make sense? Then it is better kept as a function outside. And if it is a function which is only applicable to what I am doing here, and it is not going to be useful to other functions, then I can keep it inside. What is the purpose? Can you, anybody say it again?
It is encapsulated so that only if it is used within the function. Else, if it is not used outside, that's what, if you're not using the function outside, we can use it in the function so that it's used only for that functionality.
Correct.
Just
If it is a
for-
generic enough thing, yeah, go ahead.
Generic, it will be
Just to reorganize the code, structure the code in a proper way, we use these kind of encapsulation techniques.
Yeah. If it is meaningful for this function and not meaningful for the other function, okay, it's not used by the other function, then keep it inside here. But if it is applicable to both, shared by both, you know, that functionality is used for both, then better to keep it outside. Does that make sense?
Yes, Dhaval.
Pure functions, same input gives you same output. So mathematical functions like sum, multiply, triple, square are all pure functions. Given the same input, they will produce the same output. Things like do uppercase name. Is this a pure function or an impure function?
pure function only.
Sorry,
It is an impure function
why?
because only for nouns the uppercase is needed. So we need to define a condition and
No. Uppercase means if I pass double, it is going to return double.
It's a pure function only, Dhaval.
It's a pure function.
yes. Okay.
Okay. Given any value, it is going to always produce the same output. Okay. But get today's horoscope. Okay. Person ID. Is this a pure function or impure function?
Impure.
Impure function. It is always going to produce a
Change. Yeah. Horoscope.
different output. Every day's horoscope is different. Clear? Okay. Now, there is a nice surprise. All right.
I was waiting for this, Dhaval.
You're waiting for this?
Yesterday I told there'll be a surprise.
Okay. All right. So I want you all to close your eyes. It will be a 1 minute meditation.
Okay.
Okay. Now think that all the code, JavaScript code, compiles down to ones and zeros. Okay. Even the React code compiles down to ones and zeros. At the end of the day, whether it is JavaScript code or React code, everything just becomes ones and zero. Okay. Whatever you see as a syntax is just a Maya. All right. At the end of the day, under the hood, everything is compiled to ones and zeros. Okay. There is no difference between React and JavaScript. Both are compiling to 1 and 0. Okay. Now the surprise is that you have also completed your React training.
Very nice.
Okay. See, it is very simple. Okay. React is also a functional UI programming approach where it says that UI equal to a function of a input or data. That is all. Okay. There is absolutely nothing else. UI equal to a UI is a function of data. That means, let me write it under the React part. React here. I did not want us to overload today on map, filter, and reduce. That we can do tomorrow. Okay. What does this mean? Okay, let me create an object. Title, headlines, content, today's news, foo bar bars. Okay. So let this be the data. Where did it go? Here. Okay. Now I say const render news equal to news data. Return and this is where it gets interesting. You can write HTML here. Okay. Main or div. Let me not use main right now. H1 news data dot title. P news data dot content. And I will say render news my data. What is data referring to? Data is referring to this variable. I have created a function called render news, which is taking in some value. Okay. For the sake of it, let me make further simple right now. Title and content. Okay. So there is a variable title, there is a variable content. What I am saying, given a title and content, my UI output is H1 title, paragraph, content. Does it map to this sequence? UI output is a function of the data provided. This data I am providing render news, title, and content. Okay, there is a function that returns UI output based on the data I provide. Like very much like our mathematical functions, you provide an input, it is providing an output. Okay, provide input, get output. Here the input is a number, output is a number. Inputs are number, output is number. Okay, input is number. What is the output here?
The number only.
Number. React introduces a magic which also allows you to think of UI in the same way. Input is some data and output is some UI. This is the UI that will be rendered on the browser. Okay. All the important concepts of React you have already learned. Pure and impure functions, side effects, okay, are very important React concepts, which are very much applicable to normal functional programming as well. So that is why React is so easy, it is so powerful, and it is so popular because they have modeled it to how JavaScript already works. You know, a lot of other UI library and approaches tried to model these things to, you know, a bit different way. And they were very hard to understand and hard to work with. And we would easily get, you know, lost in the nitty-gritties of the framework and, you know, the framework details itself. React was one of the first ones. Nowadays, even there are different ones like Vue and all. But React was one of the first ones to introduce this concept where this is mapping to how JavaScript already works. There is nothing much different from what it does, you know, JavaScript does. You provide some data and you get some UI. Okay, if you update the data, you will get the updated UI. It is as simple as that. If I give the data, title is, instead of headlines in today's news, I say light of the self and what we do. What it will produce?
Title will be light of the self and content will be what we do.
What to do. Okay. So render news is a React component, which is essentially nothing but a function. And in React, it is a good idea to differentiate the function names by keeping their first letter as capital rather than the generic convention that we use, which is first letter as small. This way we get to know that this is a React function which produces UI rather than simple data. Okay. This is called HTML in JavaScript. This concept is called HTML in JavaScript. You know the concepts of HTML already. You know semantic HTML already. You know, it is just about making it work with data. And React has done that magic where you can produce HTML using JavaScript. Clear? Clear?
Yes, Bhavji.
Any questions here? What is React?
React means it is a HTML in JavaScript.
HTML in JavaScript, yes.
Okay.
It allows you to produce UI in JavaScript.
Okay.
Okay. In the same way as how other functions work, which is a main thing. Okay. In other frameworks like Backbone.js and AngularJS, you have too many things going on, MVC and MVVM and things like that. React says nothing doing. Just let us see how JavaScript works itself and introduce a way of producing the UI through JavaScript. That's all. Okay. Just provide input, return UI. If I want to update this UI now, what I have to do? If I want to change the title, what I have to do?
You can change it in that render function.
Yes.
I have to change this content.
Render function.
Okay. Or if I am already having this variable here, like I did earlier, UI data equal to this title headlines and content is this. Okay. And I pass UI data here. Here I will say data dot title, data dot content. Okay. Now if I say UI data dot title equal to applied of the self foundation, what happens? React takes care of updating this UI. I don't have to worry about updating the UI. As soon as the data is updated, React updates the UI. Okay, as soon as there is a change in the properties of the data, React will change the page heading to light the self foundation. So that is where the name React comes from. What did it do?
It has reacted.
It reacted to your change.
Yes.
Okay. It reacted to the change in the data. Clear? Very simple and straightforward. There is no magic to it. Okay. They have tried to simplify the design so much that it is very intuitive. And this is all there is to it in case of React. Okay. There is a little bit more, but if once we go down into that details, you will realize that it is only about pure and impure functions and nested functions and things like that. There is not much apart from what we already learned. Okay. So with this, React is also done. I'll think of 2 or 3 assignments around the functions part. React still, is one more class away before we can do assignments in React. So I'll give you some very simple JavaScript exercises. We have to do map, filter, and reduce, after which our technical know-how is done. Okay. Now more of how we will all work together with respect to developing the UI and addressing a problem and starting new work. What will be the process around that is what we will take up in 1 or 2 classes. Okay. But with respect to the technical know-how and technical basics, we learn pretty much everything. Any questions with respect to React?
Not right now.
And see, here also the same things apply. How well you structure your data, how well you shape your data is going to make your life very easy when it comes to rendering the UI. Clear? You can as well structure this data in a very difficult way, shape it in a very difficult way. That means you will have to do a lot of work to render that properly. If you think of it nicely, then the rendering is done nicely. Okay. And it is all about functional programming all the way down the line. I can say render person data. Okay. Within that, I'm returning a function. Okay. I'll return the person data dot name. But here what I will do, instead of saying other details, render profile. Okay. And render profile is another function. Okay. So this is another function that renders the profile of a function person picture. Actually, let us say picture to make it less confusing. img src equal to person data dot image, alt equal to person data dot name. See how we nicely composed our UI, similar to how we compose our mathematical functions. See, we are using names like square, add. Okay. In our mathematical function, we are using double, factorial, Fibonacci, Pascal triangle. So different functionalities, we are creating functions for that. In the same way, in our UI, we will create functions for that, which generates parts of the UI. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Very simple. It is nothing but functions which are returning UI, and we are basically putting together those functions in one place, like we did in the mathematic function. Okay. It basically here it took some data, have some things going on. There are functions here. Okay. Based on some things, it is returning different functions. Okay. What is getting returned is different numbers. Versus in React, what is getting returned is UI. That's all. Okay. All right. Let's close for today. I'll post the assignments in our group, and we'll continue with the map, filter, and reduce tomorrow. It will not take much time. It's probably 20 minutes or so. And then we will go on to the actual working process. Okay. So we are 1 or 2 classes away from being in a position to start the actual work. All right. Let's close. Any questions with respect to anything that we learned today? Let me know.
Good.
Okay, let's close. Asato ma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Pratyurma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Gurupyo Namaha. Harihi Om.